And what did that mean? It didn't just mean that women were poor, that the women who support their own families are poor. That's always been true. What it really meant is that they were becoming the majority of the poor, that poverty was becoming a woman's problem. And we thought, well, perhaps it could even be ignored more easily if it's a woman's problem.
Says Trudy Goldberg, Director at Center for Social Policy at Delphi University School of Social Work in the U.S. She recently finished a research study on feminization of poverty. The study compares women's conditions in 7 different countries and concludes that the feminization of poverty is increasing on a global level.
We need to really move very fast because, I mean, we don't have 20 years for this. You have to know that the world is dying right now, either from the threat of nuclear war or from massive and ongoing exponential global pollution, overpopulation and the like. So it's really out of control and we've got to move very fast.
Helen CALDICOTT is said to move, walk and talk like a molecule under pressure. This Australian-born pediatrician, peace and environment activist, is also called the voice the nuclear industry fears. Dr. CALDICOTT is the author of 2 books, Missile Envy and Nuclear Madness, and is now finishing her new book titled An Aroused Woman is Unstoppable.
How? How can we do it? It would be wonderful if we could all just rise up, if you could just walk into the director's office and, you know, take over. But I think we are doing it. I think we are doing it in very quiet ways, millions and millions and millions of women all over the world.
MARILEE KARL is a Belgian-American living in Rome with a major interest in the field of development and communication. She was one of the 2 founders of ISIS International, Women's Information and Communication Service. ISIS is a networking organization with more than 10,000 contacts in 150 countries.
We need to go back to a different media, to a different economics, to a different notion of state. So long as our states are divided, so long as our countries are each other's enemies, put women there, they'll behave exactly the same.
KAMLA BHASIN is a colorful leading force in the UN's Freedom from Hunger campaign on the Indian subcontinent. She emphasizes local participation and has developed untraditional methods like street theater, puppetry and rewriting of old folk songs and rhymes to raise consciousness and increase self-reliance among the poor. Women's visions presented by these 4, who were all specially invited to give key speeches at Nordic Forum, 4 different women from 4 different continents.
One more to give you. Sure? Yeah. Close your eyes. I don't want one of them gone.
Okay. No, don't do it. No, you've got to behave yourself, Kamala.
It's the only way to spend time before.
Welcome to 1 hour of women's talk around some of the central issues of our times and women's visions for the future. In the summer of 1988, Oslo hosted Nordic Forum, a large women's conference, following up the UN Decade of Women and former forum conferences in Mexico City, Nairobi and Copenhagen. Some 10,000 women gathered in Oslo in workshops, in seminars and cultural events to interact and to empower themselves face to face with the future. Now for this conversation, the main issue is women's visions, and it's quite a bunch of women I have in front of me. I know that, and who know what women could be if they really become what they are. So the visions here we want to do in the form of a scenario. And you, Helen, you often paint a sort of Holocaust scenario when you describe the horrifying future that's ahead of us in case someone presses this button.
Yeah.
So now this time you're asked to sort of paint a little more joyful scenario, your vision, your hope, your dream.
Yes, this has been an interesting exercise because, you know, I look at what could happen if the world blew up and scare people into facing their grief and their anger and their outrage so they will be impelled to save the earth for their children. But I've never really thought about how I'd like the world to be, and it's been quite fun. So I'll tell you. And First of all, I want to start with women. 53% of the Earth's population is women. We do 2/3 of the world's work, for which we earn 10% of the income, God damn it. We own 1% of the property. We have all the babies, and that's indisputable, and we have no power. So it's time that we took our rightful place in the world, which is 53% of every organisation in the world, and that's not just serving coffee and being secretaries, that is being in control. In other words, I propose there should be a matriarchal world. The reason is that the men have had their turn. The world is about to blow up maybe tonight or next week with nuclear war. There's overpopulation, 2/3 of the world's children are starving. There's massive pollution with greenhouse effect, ozone destruction, desertification, chopping down the trees, radioactive waste, you name it. And the men have really screwed up. And it's time we took over now. Anyway, we suffer from male apartheid, and I'm very fed up with it.
Let me just describe to you my dream world. In that there will be no religion allowed which will preach male superiority. And I say this categorically because almost every religion, which brings us into a supernatural area where we can't even question it, when every religion says male is superior.
Handed down on high.
And teaches us day in and day out, where we can't even question it. And it goes into our subconscious. So first of all, these totally male patriarchal religions will cease to exist. They will not give the men the supernatural power to boss around, to control, to feel legitimate in putting their women down, because they are, I mean, God is male, son, God's son is male, all the disciples are men, I mean, the Christian
Would you like
religion.
another religion? Would you?
We will probably create another religion which is more just, which is more equal, which is religious in its true sense, which doesn't say only my religion is correct. I think any religion which says only I am correct, for me, is immoral. And many religions do say that. So first of all, I'll have a different religion. I think we do need spirituality.
One of the workshops here on the forum is that Christ is a woman and she's black.
Fine, so there comes the whole thing of sex and race and class. And I think we will really have to begin with things like religion, which are deep down. Secondly, in my world, there'll be no billion-dollar pornography industry which makes men hate women, which reduces us into flesh, and which makes beautiful things like sex into a dirty game, into a war. So that'll be out. There'll be eroticism probably, there'll be love, but there'll be no pornography. And I think any world where pornography brings in billions of dollars is sick. Thirdly, there'll be no war games. Our boys will not play with toy guns. We will probably have peace games, love games. And our men will also not have these war games which they are playing and actually killing thousands and thousands of people. Within the home in my world, men will have the freedom to be able to cry when they want to. They will have the freedom to be gentle, to be loving. They will have the freedom to share the joy of bringing up a child. I mean, you can see a man when he is with a child, how beautiful that human being becomes. I mean, when I look at my husband, the most beautiful expression on his face is when he is with our children. Let more and more men have those expressions rather than those deadly, objective, cold, rational. But what I'm into feminine and male values rather than saying this is male and female. I do know that if I cut myself away from my children, if I cut myself away from nature, if I do not nurture anyone, just the fact that I have a womb will not make me behave like a woman. And I do find that women, urbanized women, who are cutting themselves away, behave very much like men. Because for me, it is not my womb which makes me, it's the use of my womb. It is the use of my feelings. And I believe that any man who nurtures, who brings up children, can develop as much beauty So I am not saying we are biologically determined. I am against biological determination. A man can be beautiful.
A man is not aggressive and dominating
He's
by
not
nature.
born like that,
No.
but thousands of years of experience. And that is, I think, that's what I hear Helen say. They have been brought up like that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
So you think that feminism can liberate men?
I think we definitely are moving towards questioning certain values. We are questioning controlling other nations. We are questioning one small bit of powerful class controlling others. We are questioning hierarchies. And we are not just saying this to men, because I also know when we women become powerful, we tend to have the same tendencies. So I do not want to replace patriarchy with an equally aggressive matriarchy. That's no solution for me.
I have a quotation that it's Queen Victoria said about Florence Nightingale. She said, "Such a head, I wish we had her at the War Office."
Yeah, exactly.
That's how women differ, like you say to Helen, that Thatcher may be a woman, but she's not a sister.
No, you see, because it's such a patriarchal system, I know in medicine, for a woman to achieve, she has to become like men and be better than they are at their game to survive, and even then she often gets her head chopped off or psychologically raped. As men rape each other in the corporations, men are so cruel to each other. And I've seen men absolutely destroyed, but they don't talk about it because the winner takes all and the loser shuts up. You know, this is the male game, and I agree totally with you, Kamla, that we have to maintain who we are when we take over so that the whole ethic changes of the world.
But what kind of power do we want as women? Will it be without hierarchies? Would it be circular, flat, small, decentralized?
I wouldn't. I mean, it will evolve. I don't think we can possibly say what it's going to be, except that we need to really move very fast, because, I mean, we don't have 20 years for this. You have to know that the world is dying right now, either from the threat of nuclear war or from massive and ongoing exponential global pollution, overpopulation and the like. So it's really out of control, and we've got to move very fast. I think we can sort of mentally masturbate ourselves thinking about how, why, when and where. Let's just do it, and as you do it and you're inspired, you evolve. And I think the spiritualism is very important too. I don't think we have the answers, but like Gandhi, who prayed every day, if we listen inside to the higher power, or whatever we call it, the inspiration comes from within, and that's what we have to do, not try and work it out with our own brains.
That's a major difference, maybe, in the attitude. It's important to say too, because it's very seldom when you train in using power that the first thing is to listen or pray.
And that's absolutely key.
Yeah. But love is a lonely word within the power discussions and how we're going to save the earth.
Compassion, I would use, not love. I think love's open to a whole lot of innuendos and malinterpretations, but compassion, caring for your... and honesty. That's what's lacking in the male world. They haven't got the guts to be honest, so they stab each other in the back, and they play these power games all the time. They're so cruel.
But if we are honest now and look, what have we done wrong if we look back on the women's movement the last 2 decades? Do you think that's anything lacking in our culture and the way we have handled things?
Well, I think we've been fools. We've been wimps. I mean, for thousands of years or forever we've had babies and we've died in childbirth or died soon after, and having baby after baby saps your energy and you have no time to think or do anything. Now we don't have to have babies, and it's a new era, and we have to stop sitting back and being pathetic and take control. You see, if your child was threatened and about to be killed, would you sit back and analyse it and say, well, I don't think I've got the courage and I can't be bothered? I mean, you had the energy of a lioness to save your cubs. Well, the children have leukemia equivalent. They know they're going to die. How dare we bring children into a world where they know they haven't got a future? So then they drug themselves out because they can't bear to think of the future. And then we say, why are our children taking drugs? And you've been talking about that, Trudy.
Yes, I think that sort of the most massive denial that we of all is the denial that of the effect of this threat of annihilation on the way we think and feel. You know, people will come into the offices of psychiatrists or into the offices of social workers, and they'll be suffering from dropout and cop-out and drug out or whatever, and all sorts of trivial causes will be given as the reason, and yet they never seem to think that perhaps the most enormous vile presence on earth may really be affecting all of these kinds of behaviors. I mean, it's really extraordinary. I thought my youngster wasn't taking in any of this. And then one day he sat down and wrote a poem. And of course, it's only in the poems and the nightmares of some children that you pick this up. And he said, the poem said something to the effect that he knew why the rain fell. And the rain was the dead crying. And the dead were crying not because they were dead. They were crying for us. Mm-hmm. And they know that the nuclear, that it's coming, maybe 20, 30, 40, maybe more. And this was the most sanguine and optimistic of children. You know, it was just absolutely staggering, you know, that would somehow come out of him. And I figured if the other children sometimes can tell you that they're worried about it. I don't think if he were in those surveys that Dr. Mack made, he would be the 50% who said they weren't worried, you know. So that I think there is this sort of enormous numbing that's related to denying what this might be doing to us. The nuclear nurture is, it may change what we're like if we're not careful. You know, the human personality doesn't stay the same. I'm told that in the Elizabethan times, people were really a little bit like in Shakespeare's plays. You know, they're bigger than life, but their life was a little bit different. And it's possible that nuclear nurture may really change the way we are. We may get even worse.
Well, I was very inspired by Helen's talk that she gave at the forum. She's a very, very dynamic speaker. And she says, rightly, that we're 53% of the population. We really must just rise up and take over the power of the media, of the church, of the governments, everything. And it was such an inspiring speech. I could just really feel like all of us in that room could just really rise up and use that energy and do it.
We were empowered, really, in a way. Yeah.
And it reminded me of a poem written by a Japanese woman many years ago. Mountain moving day is coming. All sleeping women now arise and move. And I could just envision millions of women all over the world rising up and moving. And yet, you know, how can we do it? It would be wonderful if we could all just rise up, if you could just walk into the director's office and, you know, take over. But I think we are doing it. I think we are doing it in very quiet ways, millions and millions and millions of women all over the world. Because in my work in the network of ISIS International, we're in contact with thousands of women's groups in almost every country of the world. And they're organizing themselves just, you know, in little ways, in little groups, in little villages. Villages that are far away from the cities and inside the cities. And I think it's all these little actions joining together, these little streams that are going to come together and really make the powerful force.
So your vision is that all these women slowly and silently take over?
I think we're doing it.
I think it's that plus the other.
Yeah, how do you bring
because
it together?
We've got to get the sense of urgency. I mean, our kids think they're not going to live and they're going to die and they won't even grow up. So what are we going to do for them?
I have problems, really, with this vision of women taking over the power of media. I want to destroy the power of media. I want to destroy that media which treats human beings as objects, which creates propaganda. Whether the woman controls that media, I think anyone who touches this kind of power will become dehumanized. Even if we are women, we will. I do not want to take over the power of the modern state. I want to demolish this kind of power. I do not want to take over the power of the transnational corporation. I think that needs to be demolished. We need to go back to a different media, to a different economics, to a different notion of state. So long as our states are divided, so long as our countries are each other's enemies, put women there, they'll behave exactly the same. Yes. So for me, we are not going to take over the same game. We will refuse to play this game. We will create a new game.
So you're not working within the structure, but to create new structures, which is a revolution.
Have to be thought about.
Yeah, it's revolution. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's
and
revolution.
I think this is what I was trying to say. I think this is what all these millions of women's groups are doing. They're creating new ways. They're creating their own media. There's, you know, fantastic number of groups all over the world who are creating innovative media, not the mainstream media, not the television, not the radio, which in fact doesn't reach.
It has to occur without violence, of course.
Of course it does.
And that will make it different from almost any other revolution.
I mean, that goes without saying. There'll be no blood or violence.
You know, there are these women in India who started this movement called the Chipko movement, Hug the Tree movement. When the contractors came to cut the trees, they said, you cut us first, kill us first, and then touch our trees. These trees are our brothers and sisters. These trees are our oxygen factories. They knew this. They said, we don't want your factories which are polluting us. We want smaller units. We don't want your dams. They are killing us. You say your dam is giving us electricity and water. We say your dams are damming us. They are killing us. We don't want these death factories. We want clearer rivers.
But Kamla, how come that these women were so strong and had this consciousness? What has happened that made them act?
They have never been made. All women have that power, as she has been saying.
But why don't they act, and why is it like that?
Wherever wherever anyone has acted with force, at least in our countries, it's been women. In the peace movement, as Helen was telling us, it is women. In the environment movement, it is women. Wherever it comes that you have to lay down your life for a peasant movement, the woman is in the forefront. Again, her relationship with life gives her the force. So it's not that these women were made conscious by someone. That is the consciousness we are all born with, except that it was the weight of modern education, the weight of propaganda was not on them. And again, they were threatened. Their lives were threatened by the symbols of modernity, dams, roads, factories. They are questioning all this. They are saying this is not development.
What is real development? To put it precise.
For them, real development will have to be planned at their level and not in Delhi by people trained in Harvard and other places who are absolutely out of touch with reality, with nature, with themselves. They say, we know what we want. We don't want cash crops. We want food crops. Away with your companies. We don't want big dams. We will, instead of one big dam, we'll have 100. You listen to them, they'll give you an alternative model of development.
So self-reliance and not external dependence is a central issue of KAMLA.
We have enough scientific and medical knowledge now to save the world. If you educate women, they stop having babies. So the women of the world must be made literate. We have enough food to feed all the people of the world. The world is spending $1 trillion a year on weapons.
Absolutely.
The Gulf War has been a big business for countries like Sweden, who sell weapons to friend and foe alike, for genocide, for money. That's happening. I mean, that's international commerce now is weapons. It's not oil or gold. We have enough, we can immunise all the children of the world against tuberculosis. 2% of people in India have tuberculosis. It's curable. Leprosy is everywhere. Measles, I mean, we can cure all the children. We have enough antibiotics for everybody in the world. We can, and already we can feed the people in the world. We stop going out into space, for God's sake. Those stupid little boys want to spend all that money and put 200 nuclear reactors up in space, fueled with plutonium, the most deadly substance known to man, which are going to come down through the atmosphere, burn up and give lots of millions of people cancer, and they're going to put hydrogen bombs up there, and they're going to go up to Mars. I mean, it's pathetic. People can't live anywhere else except on the Earth. Only the Earth can grow this. You can't grow that anywhere else. There's no oxygen anywhere else. There's no water. What do they think they're doing? And why do we let them spend all that money when 2/3 of the world's children are starving? We have enough knowledge now and enough money to save the earth, to live in peace, to cooperate together and feel happy.
Absolutely.
That's development. Or even the word development may be obsolete. I agree, we get rid of the multinationals, we get rid of the church. You know, that's finished. It's over.
Why do we talk of gross national products?
It's
always,
gross, really.
always products. Let's talk of gross national happiness.
Yeah.
Gross
the bottom
national
line is not
Gross
satisfaction.
national greed, it really is.
Really?
Well, I think here in the North we have a lot to learn from the women's movement in other parts of the world. Because I really think that in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, the women's movement there is dealing with two things. It's dealing with the oppression of women. It's dealing with the so-called women's issues. Women don't want to be beaten anymore. They want to be able to control their bodies. They want to be able to earn money. But they're also very much concerned about other kinds of oppression. They're concerned about the oppression of multinational corporations on their countries, on their lives, on their communities. They're concerned about the model of development which is being imposed on them by the planners, mostly in the North.
Yep. And the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, who work for the US corporations.
Do you think, Kamla, that what you described of those women who were taking power, I felt that they were rural women. They were women who were close to nature, who hadn't lost that tie. And I wonder, do you see the same kind of thing persisting among urban women? Are you talking more about something that is preserved because there's a closeness to our mother? I say that because I've had the privilege and the joy of living in the woods for the last 22 years, and I feel that maybe that's what's perhaps helped me to hold on to my soul.
I do think that that makes a difference. I do think that modern science has always led a perpetual war against nature.
Yep.
It's related to women. It's related to
absolutely.
You know, they're
nature
interlinked.
And the
women.
scientists wrote about penetrating nature,
Absolutely.
controlling it, destroying it. I mean, they've written about it.
Destroying the feminine principles,
Yes.
the creative principles. And I think, I mean, you go and live there, and you know there's a different kind of relationship. And I think the way what we have done to our agriculture, I mean, these fruits look very beautiful, but I'm not sure whether I would like to eat these because of all the pesticide and all the fertilizers.
Sometimes they don't taste as good as they look.
Right. And the Indian peasant was saying to the expert 50 years ago that, listen, your pesticide doesn't seem right. We pestered them to use our pesticides because the multinationals were making money, because all the development agencies were in the payroll of those companies. And after 50 years, we get new experts from the West who come and tell us, listen, these fertilizers are no good. Now we'll bring you natural fertilizers. The same bloody experts, after having made mistakes for 50 years, now come and tell us the new knowledge. The peasant had it. And really, what is exciting for me in the women's movement is for the first time in the world, women are creating knowledge. We have never created knowledge in the past. We've always been recipients of knowledge. Science, religion, moral science, social sciences, philosophy were all male domains. Media continues to be that. For the first time, we have a large enough number of women who are saying, men didn't discover agriculture,
We did. And the women do the agriculture in the world.
Right.
Still.
We are the ones who are saying that the male knowledge about women's bodies is probably not correct. We are saying that Freud messed us up, you know. I mean, we need female Freuds, we need female theologians. And for the first time, I think that's happening.
To get them.
Only
Just now. And I don't think there's any going back on this. And I think that is where, what's exciting is when Helen gets up from Australia and speaks, and I say, God, I don't have to speak anymore. She's saying what I would like to be saying. This kind of echo coming from different parts of the world.
And
That's what is exciting.
Yeah. And when I read your article about saying that it's the literate, most advanced countries that have made most destruction to the world.
Of course.
Which is, we're talking
That's
about
called
illiteracy.
growth and development.
Yeah, and that's called development.
So three equals destruction.
We were talking about nature and the attitude toward nature. That interests me a lot because, I mean, we're taught that nature is something that we use for mankind.
Or to be conquered.
To conquer it for us, and that
be
life
conquered
has
and to be
no
used.
purpose in itself.
The other thing is that even in the Grow-Brundtland report, Our Common Future, they growth, but it has to be ecologically sound. Growth can't coexist with salvation of the ecology because the two are not compatible. They're incompatible. We have to save nature.
And at the same time, the report says that we have to have more economic and technological development.
Yeah, and also it says we mustn't chop down the tropical forests, not because they're magic and full of the most wonderful species, many of which we haven't yet described in its evolution, but there might be some useful things in the forest for man to use. What a perverted way of looking at nature. These things, these nectarines, you know, they're destroying the variety of species of plants so that there's only one species of wheat and one species, and they've patented them so no one else can grow any other sort of flowers now except those produced by the seed companies that are owned by the oil companies who make the nuclear weapons. And you have to know that this fruit, it's got toxins in it. They use toxic substances to kill the insects to make it look beautiful. But in its beauty, it's poisonous.
Absolutely.
And we give it to our children. We give our children carrots. They use PCBs and pesticides to make the carrots grow and look nice. We give them to our babies. What the hell are they doing? So that the consumers will say, that's a nice peach, I think I'll buy that one. You know, it's like the packaging. They make all this packaging, plastics, which make biologically toxic side products tipped into the environment. Cardboard, thick cardboard. You have to chop trees down to make cardboard. When I was a little girl, I used to go to the grocer's store on my bike. I used to buy a pound of flour and a brown paper bag. In India, they use newspaper for packaging. What are we doing? I mean, I get so mad because we're poisoning our kids, and it's fundamentally so the rich get richer with no regard for the ecology and evolution and the delicacy of what you could call God. This is, I mean, God is nature.
The West is destroying all the trees to clean its backside with all that toilet paper.
Yes,
I mean,
that's the ultimate irony, that the very clean people are the ones who are polluting the most.
Absolutely.
You know,
they're the most underdeveloped.
Scrub with the cleanser, and it turns out that the cleanser has chlorides in it, and so you're polluting. And this terrible irony, you know, really clean, compulsively clean, and you're the dirtiest of all.
And killing all the insects in your house and filling up your house with
But listen, ladies, as far as we've come now to when it comes to depletion of the ozone layer, deforestation, you know, all the pollution that is upon Earth, do you think there is a way back to nature that is not through technology?
Yeah, but we've got to start now. That's the problem. And we're not, I mean, the UN did a grand thing. We'll reduce the production of chlorofluorocarbons, which destroy the ozone layer, by 50% by the year 2000. One chlorine atom eats up 40,000 ozone molecules. They just keep on eating them. What are they doing? Oh, they can't do it now because the industries will lose money. Well, we can't put scrubbers in the smokestacks to remove the sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides that produce the greenhouse effect because an acid rain, because, well, it's too expensive. I mean, when are we going to put our foot down and say, no, you've got to stop it now because the Earth's about to die?
Or it's in the name of freedom. The corporations are to be freed. We're going to stop, fettering the corporations.
Freedom to kill.
But, you
Freedom
know,
to kill.
It is freedom to kill.
long-term
That's
murder.
it. You know, we won those small victories in the United States, you know, to protect people by having seat belts put on, to make the cars safer, all of these things. And now we're going to free the corporations so that they'll be free to kill. I tell people that all the time. It's free to kill.
Murders.
Because it means that every time you take off any of these controls, you know, some more people will die or get sick.
But Rita, really the choice is not between technology and no technology. None of us says we are against technology. We are against modern science. What we are saying is
the destructive use of technology.
We want modern science because it can help us, but not this mad pursuit of science. We have to become the masters of this science, which seems to have
be
The
just taken
mistresses
over.
of the science, please.
So
No,
if
I
it's-
think a master, whoever
It's
is in
better, it's
control is
okay.
a master.
We
because
need
mistress-
national committees of top scientists to examine the ecology in each country, and then we need a United Nations committee to control the environment globally. We don't know a lot about what's happening. We're still learning about how we're destroying the planet. And then control the corporations and say, no, you're not doing that. You get fined $10 million if you do that. Why doesn't India use its sewage to fertilise its crops like China does? I mean, we could use... Why don't we use sewage, our human excrement,
fuel, I think, don't you?
to grow these things? That's the best thing, not
Do you
artificial
know, people
fertilisers.
listening to us now talking, I mean, mostly everybody in
Would
Europe,
agree.
they know that this is insane.
Right.
And they see that we're sort of heading towards something that we don't want. And still, so little is done. And you're talking about sort of reconnecting with nature and with our own feelings.
Right.
And of course, media influences both the image, our self-image and our inner image. So first, the question, have you ever felt powerless? Did you sort of feel it's so huge and it's so damaging that you... That feeling, I think a lot of people feel that you can't do anything, that you don't know what to do, you don't have the power. But you have... What is your recipe?
Well, I'm scared stiff, and I'm scared for my kids, and no one's going to kill my kids.
And she doesn't stay home
They're
and be
just not
scared.
gonna.
She gets out.
And I feel
Lots of women
better.
stay
See,
home.
I get scared when I stay at home and stop. When I'm out there, I feel excited.
And
It's
you're
therapeutic.
recharged all
It
the
makes
time.
you feel better.
You're
And of
re-energized
course
is
we
the
can
word,
fix it.
yes.
You are, as I see it, you're in contact with your rage and your fear, and you express it in public.
Yeah.
Before you did it, what made you do it?
But I've always been very scared of dying. I don't want to die. That's normal. If you're not scared of dying, you know, your strongest physiological instinct is not sex or eating, it's survival. That's why you can jump a fence 10 feet high if a bull is chasing you. You've got adrenal glands just above your kidney that pump out adrenaline, push up your blood sugar, push up your blood pressure, and get your neurons going so you survive. I mean, you sweat and get frightened.
Yeah, but listen,
we all should be
Marilee, are
like
you
that
angry?
now.
I never saw you angry. What about your anger?
Yes, I'm angry.
Do you show it the same way?
I don't show it the same way Helen does. I have a different
way.
personality. I have
Yeah.
a different way. I show my anger by sitting down, writing, communicating.
Yeah. It's very constructive and creative, isn't it?
Yeah. And I still am very convinced. I mean, there's many ways we have to work.
Yeah.
We all have different ways of working, and I think there's something that everybody can do. And I think it is really important that all these little groups all over the world, you know, act locally, think globally, act locally, but also connect with each other, because it's then that we're going to form
How
a
could they
power.
connect with you? If someone
can we
watches
link?
now,
Yeah,
how can you?
we link?
How can they link? ISIS, Rome.
ISIS Rome, we're one network. We're just one network.
But they can all write to you if they want to and get information, right?
Sure. We're an information service.
Yeah.
We're one network, and there are thousands of networks, but they can write to us, and we can put them in touch with other networks who are acting around the issues, particular issues that they're concerned with.
And my solution too is these corporations who really I see as the root of all evil at the moment, who control and run our governments. The people have the ultimate power because the politicians are not our leaders, they're our representatives, and they bloody well do what we tell them to do, providing we decide to make them. At the moment, because we're lazy, the corporations run our politicians by bribery and corruption. I mean, they're corporate prostitutes, most politicians, let's face it. Certainly in Australia, they are, and I'm sure in your country, and they are in America. And so the people have to rise up, it's revolution again. So we're going to have a proper democracy. The corporations have to be legislated out of business, if necessary, to save the planet, period.
But when we connect, we don't connect only on women's issues. I would like to connect with the Swedish women on the Bofors issue. The women of India would like to tell the Swedish women that, listen, don't talk to us about women and development. Will you stop your weapons industry selling weapons to my very poor country? So don't bring me a few million krona in one hand and these big Bofors deals which buy up your politicians
like
and
the
my
Peace Corps,
politicians.
you know. It's sort of like the Peace
It's
Corps.
really sick. I mean, you know, you talk of Sweden as that peace-loving country, Scandinavia, but if your peace and if your development and if your high standard of living is based on your sale of weapons to my country,
Right.
you must be burning somewhere. This is immoral, it's unethical. And because you're creating blood all over in the name, as she was saying, of religion. All these beautiful religious people dressed up in their white suits come and sell their weapons.
But Kamla, why do you buy them? Why are they bought? Isn't that important?
Because there is a first world in every third world. Because my politicians are the same creed as yours. And that marriage of theirs must be finished by people like us getting in touch with each other. But not just on these beautiful peace issues, saying no to this. Every issue in the world is a woman's issue.
Yep. So you say that we should do our work where we are.
Absolutely.
And you do where you are. And do you have a sort of small recipe or a little rhyme to tell us a little of how you work to make women feel self-confident and rely on their own strength?
Basically, I think give woman a chance to feel great about herself. We've never had time to laugh and to be joyous. And my recipe at home really always is we sing together. We sing songs of joy, like तोड़ तोड़ के बंधनों को देखो बहनें आती हैं, तोड़ तोड़ के बंधनों को देखो बहनें आती हैं, ओ देखो लोगो देखो बहनें आती हैं, आएंगी रोज मिटाएंगी वो तो नया ज़माना लाएंगी. Breaking the shackles, the women come. Look, you people, the women come. They'll fight oppression, and they'll try to create a new world. And we all feel linked and powerful and energized.
And I think that is a very good closing of our discussion. I thank you, sister guests, for joining this talk and the discussion about the real hard issues on development and peace and equality has just begun. So to be continued, as we say on television, be awake, stay focused, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you, Rita, the meter maid. Lovely Rita, meter maid. Lovely Rita, meter maid.
Was that it?
Meter maid.
Nothing can come between us. There's one thing I really want to ask you is why you think Gorbachev is a miracle, but I didn't dare to.
Why not? What do you think? What is a miracle?
Great question.
Maybe we'll have this big political discussion that you always have been doing.
That would be good.